Hey everyone, welcome to the Stride to Freedom podcast. My name is Russell Benaroya, and I'm the co-founder of Stride Services, a virtual back-office bookkeeping and accounting firm serving hundreds of clients around the United States. This podcast is designed to help small business owners focus on growth and innovation. In other words, focus on those things that inspired you to start your business in the first place. We call it your genius zone. We do our job on this podcast when business owners feel like they have the trust and confidence to build the right team of partners around them that will help them grow. Thanks for joining. Let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Stride to Freedom podcast, where we help business leaders get and stay in their genius zone. What is your genius zone? Your genius zone is that thing that you do that feels effortless for you, where people acknowledge you for what you have built or created, and you wonder, I didn't really think it was all that, but it's just what I do. The more time you can spend in that space, the more opportunity you have to make the kind of impact you desired when you started your business. And it's such a privilege for me to host this show. You all know my name is Russell Benaroya. I'm the host of the Stride to Freedom podcast. I am also a partner and co-founder of our sponsor, Stride Services. Stride Services is an outsourced bookkeeping, accounting, and fractional CFO services firm. And our genius zone is how we help business leaders use data to make better business decisions. Okay, enough about that. Let's jump right in. I have the distinct pleasure today of welcoming my new friend, Caleb Guilliams. Hi, Caleb.
It's a pleasure to be on here.
Today is all about control, but not like in the domination sense of the word, but it is in the sense of how you control decisions around managing your money, which in this environment may feel a bit more acute than ever. And Caleb has really risen in the marketplace as being a progressive voice around responsible investing and progressive thought and motivation and discipline and all of these things we're going to hear about in his role as the founder and CEO of BetterWealth. I was introduced to Caleb through a mutual friend, Elliot Neff, who's the CEO and founder of a company called Chess for Life. And Elliot was on the show a few weeks back. And Elliot, who is a national master in chess, thinks very precision about his next moves. So the fact that he made the next move to introduce me to Caleb maybe sets the stage for what is to come. So Caleb, why don't we go ahead and jump in?
I feel like the bar is set so high. So my hope is to deliver massive value and have this conversation just be insanely life-giving to the people listening. And so thank you for having me on the show. And I'm excited, man.
It's such a pleasure. Maybe start with a little bit of the BetterWealth story, your background, how you got interested in investing, and the kind of impact you endeavored to make through the company.
Yep. My story really begins in the center of Wisconsin. That's the state that I grew up in. I'm the oldest of 6 kids. My dad's a PhD in molecular biology and has written multiple books on all of that science stuff. And then my mom actually stayed home and homeschooled us. And so I had a very unique upbringing, and I wanted to be a doctor until I took biology for the first time. And I was like, I'm not going to follow in my dad's footsteps. And I was like the typical oldest, where I was like very like responsible. I was also very self-aware in some of my downfalls. I was very short for my age, and I struggle with reading. So like some people would call it dyslexia, but reading is not something that I'm very good at. And so I had this moment when I was like 12 or 13, when I realized that the things that I can't control, like my height, I can't put my identity in, but the things that I can control, like how I show up and do things like school and reading, I have to work harder than the average person. The other quote that I love is by Simon Sinek. He says, the solutions that you find to your weaknesses become your greatest strength. And my ability to communicate came out of my very poor ability to get through life by not communicating. So it forced me to communicate just to get by, and that became a strength of mine that I can lean on to this day. And so one of my first jobs in just going through life as a homeschool kid was working at a chicken farm, and I processed chickens, and I made money for that. I made $1 for every chicken that I gutted, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And I read 2 books that has, made a tremendous impact in my outlook and what I'm doing now. I read Good to Great by Jim Collins, and I read The Richest Man in Babylon. And those 2 books, The Richest Man in Babylon, is very much of like how anyone, regardless of who you are, some principles that you can live by, become wealthy. And then Good to Great was this inspiration of like, what does it take to be a great company? What does it take to be a level 5 leader? And at 15 years old, I kind of just looked at the world and I was like, why is everyone broke? Why don't people know this? And I just wrote down on a note card, I want to be a CEO of a Fortune 500 company to help people with money. And I will say the rest is just the journey of walking that out. I got a job at a bank when I was 17. I got to work as a teller. When I was 19 years old, I became one of the youngest people in the country to actually have the responsibility of taking over the investment department of that entire bank. And at 19 years old, I started meeting with people, realizing real fast that majority of people do not have their financial life figured out. There's brokenness, there's a lack of control, there's a lack of understanding, there's a lack of knowing your numbers. I can't tell you how many business owners would come in and have no clue what was going on. And then they were looking at investing in X, Y, or Z when their business was underutilized and capitalized. And so I remember taking a step back and saying, there's got to be a better way. And when you're 19 and you look like you're 15 or 14, the beard's helping me out a little bit. Being young and looking so young, I just had people come out of the woodwork to help me and mentor me. And I learned a lot about money that we can unpack if you'd like. But some of the key principles is I realized efficiency matters. Efficiency is a function of 2 things: getting really clear on what you want, and then eliminating any friction to getting there. Mm-hmm. And I realized if you think about that concept, majority of people don't know what they want. They can't articulate their true why. They can't articulate a metric that's not something financial. So that's, if you don't know where you want to go, to quote Alice in Wonderland, any road will get you there. Welcome to America. So a lack of understanding your why and your core metric is a problem. But then once you know the core metric, a lot of people are walking to their destination when there's these things called airplanes. And so once we get clear on where we want to go, then it's analyzing, can we do a better job creating cash flow? Can we do a better job eliminating inefficiencies? Can we do a better job maximizing our investments? And those are the 3 areas that we could spend a lot of time talking about. But those 3 areas, depending on eliminating friction in those 3 areas, can really help someone keep more of their money. And as a result, take their desired result to make it happen faster, better, whatever that is. And so at 21 years old, I actually have a mission statement, which reads very similar to the purpose of the show, which is to help people see and reach their highest potential. We could have a whole episode on that, but I've realized that majority of people are not living to their God-given potential. And as a result, it's really sad to think that people are living their life not reaching that and not living that out. And so if there's anything that I can do, and right now I'm committed to helping people with money, if I can help people use money as a tool so that they can show more powerfully in their life, the ripple effect that has, it's one of the greatest leverage things that I can do. So that's why I do what I do. And we started BetterWealth when we were 21. 5 years later, we have clients all over the country. We do everything virtually. I was laughed at and discouraged to starting it when I was 21, rightfully so, I think. And by God's grace, we're still in business and we've grown. And now a lot of industry professionals and associations are having me keynote their events because of our strategy, how we are able to do it at a young age, and some of the technology that we've been using to be able to help people keep more of their money, be more efficient, and live more intentionally.
What is BetterWealth? Is BetterWealth a money management firm? Is it a content company and an education company? A little bit of both? Give me the story.
So the BetterWealth started as an LLC that helped people get educated around overfunding life insurance. And we would teach people on how to utilize life insurance, and how to save your money and use it to invest in yourself or your business or whatnot. That was how it started. And that's when I met Elliot, and I wrote the book, The And Asset. We met each other through our book writing journey, which is interesting because I don't like reading, but we wrote a book. So that's another interesting concept. From there, we do a lot. We do entrepreneurial coaching. We do tax planning. We have an RIA and do investing. We're nationally known for our life insurance strategy. So we do that. And then we also do retirement planning for people that want a more entrepreneurial look at what word I hate using, retirement, and looking at that. So we do a lot. And we also have a coaching side to our business as well for entrepreneurs.
So to bring it down to like a fifth grade level, if I'm listening to the show and I run a business, or I don't run a business, but I'm a leader that's trying to grow and invest in myself and realize my full human potential, you would say, consider calling BetterWealth when what? Reach out to us when
you want to learn better ways to keep and control your money.
Yeah, got it.
And it sounds like there's a lot of synergy to what you do and what we do. And that's something I'm just so grateful for, to be talking to people that are doing a lot, are similar things, and bringing on other guests that can enhance the output and the result. And so I'm just so grateful again to be on here.
Do you find yourself having to educate a bit on where BetterWealth fits into the rubric of how people typically think about money management broadly? They think about certain institutions or maybe certain products or instruments, and they might not immediately even know that a company like BetterWealth exists. So do you find yourself educating and evangelizing a bit?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things that we do, and I'll just illustrate this. So we have a virtual family office that we do that's for the people that can't afford a typical virtual family office. So a virtual family office, for your listeners, are, if you're worth a ton of money, you can spend a couple $100,000, if not $1 million a year, to have all your financial professionals on the same page. And you get your investment person knowing what your risk management person to what your bookkeeper and CFO are doing, and everybody's on the same page. And that creates efficiency to allow you to make sure your money is optimized. And for people that have a lot of money, the $1 million that costs them to run that each year is a drop in the bucket for the value that they're getting. So we looked at that system and said, man, that is a superior way. That's a superior way to really maximize your situation. What if we could do a version of that for people that aren't worth a 500 million, but worth 2 to 5? And because there's entrepreneurs are running with their chickens with their head cut off, and they have no clue where their money's going, and they're not investing in assets that are actually aligned with what they want to do or why they started the business to begin with. They're diversifying their ability to have an impact, and they don't even know where to begin. And so that is a function of think of us as like a virtual family office for entrepreneurs that are in the 2 to 5 to 10 million range. And some people are working their way up to 2, and some people are on the high, 10 million of assets and asking the question, okay, I have more money than I know what to do with. I want to be a good steward of that. A big portion of the virtual family office is our understanding around life insurance and how to use that not as an investment, but as a safe core asset that people can save their money and utilize it throughout their life. And that specialty really is the reason why people tend to work with us. Is, yes, we have the virtual family office and we can coach and do all those things, but our understanding around how to utilize life insurance as not an investment. I keep saying that because a lot of times it's sold as an investment alternative or whatnot. It's just, quite frankly, a better long-term place to store and use your capital. And if people understood that, they would maybe want to redirect some of their savings into this asset for the long-term benefits and then the short-term access that they could get through that. So those are why people choose to work with us. And it's the last thing I'll say, and I'm sorry that I'm saying all these things. I believe your greatest investment, especially as an entrepreneur, is you. And so what I find is a lot of people are not properly diversified when it comes to their priorities, and they're diversifying too fast. And as a result, they're shortchanging their ability to create more cash flow and whatnot. And so we really, really try as a company to highlight what's really, really important. Even though we have an RIA and we can do asset management and whatnot, we tend to tell entrepreneurs to maybe not diversify too fast and make sure that they're really making sure that their business is fully capitalized so that they can take their business and their life to the next level.
Super interesting. So life insurance is a bit of a secret sauce component of what you do. What is misunderstood by most people about life insurance?
Well, there's two sides of the coin. The side that you'll probably see if you Google is you'll take someone like Dave Ramsey or Susie Orman or Amit Sethi, and there's a lot of gurus out there that will say life insurance is horrible. You'll get screwed if you put your money into it. It's a horrible place, and so don't touch it with a 10-foot pole. And if I have a ton of empathy for what they're saying, because majority of life insurance is sold as an investment, takes forever to break even, is not flexible, horrible growth, and pays the person like us a lot of money for setting them up. But that doesn't so we're essentially throwing out the baby with the bathwater and just saying all life insurance is bad. When some of the things that I learned is life insurance can be extremely flexible. It can be incredible growth. It can pay a fraction of the quote unquote commission, which ultimately makes it better for the consumer. And most importantly, it's never meant to compete with an investment. I mean, we're looking at long-term rates of return of 3.5% to 5.5%, which shouldn't get anybody excited, other than the fact that if you compare it to a savings account, there's no other safe asset that can give you access and control like a savings account with the kind of growth and future benefits like life insurance. And so while it's not an investment, if people understand that it's an and asset, which that was my book, The And Asset, it can give your dollars long-term benefits that are truly incredible. And if we want to park on this, we can spend more time, but also can give you the ability to utilize that capital to invest in the market, invest in your business, invest in your education as an emergency fund. And so now when you're starting to do the mental brain work of saying, oh, I can take $1 that can literally protect me, can be amazing for the future, give me options and all of that, and can give me the ability to still access that dollar throughout my life, and I don't have to eliminate the future value. That's where people like Elliot say, oh, this is a really interesting concept, and you're making me think twice about how I think about my money.
And is the construction of that vehicle that life insurance vehicle, something that BetterWealth helps architect, or is it something that's available? People just need to know what to ask and where to find it, or do you bring certain pieces to the puzzle that make it whole?
Yeah. So one of the things I would love to do during my lifetime is make it where people could buy life insurance without a broker. That would be amazing, and that would create even more efficiency. Right
less
now,
friction.
Less friction. Right now, you have to buy life insurance through a licensed professional. That's essentially the middleman between you and the insurance company. And so there's really two things that need to be checked. You need the right insurance company, which we recommend having a solid mutual company, meaning that you're part owner when you enter into that agreement. And then the contract needs to be optimally and maximally designed for cash. And so there's a lot of people that represent great companies, but very few people that know how to optimally design policies where you're getting a ton of cash value in the first year and break evens at a year 4 or 5 and whatnot. And so with that, you would want to work with someone like us or someone who really knows what they're doing. And unfortunately, I know this sounds salesy for me saying, but there's very few people around the country that do this well. And the downside to doing it well, you don't get paid a lot. So the only people that can really afford to do this are ones that live off of volume. Well, we have clients in all 50 states, and that's our model. And so as you can imagine, it can be a little bit threatening to the industry itself when we're putting out information like this, because typically people have a few clients a year that they're setting up life insurance for, and it would be hard to make a living if you only have that model to do the type of life insurance we do.
And how would I self-assess whether or not this is a good decision for me right now?
Yeah,
What
it's a
are
great question.
what are the considerations?
Yeah, I think the big question, and this is something obviously we won't be able to accomplish through the podcast, but the question that you should ask anything whether you're whatever decision you're making financially or not is, does this thing help me get closer to what I currently want?
Mm-hmm.
And if the answer is no, then you shouldn't do it. If the answer is yes, then you should ask, okay, is this the best thing that will help me accomplish what I need to accomplish? And so that's what I would say. That's like my 2 cents as it relates to life insurance is, would this asset as a part of your portfolio help you get closer? With all that said, if you don't have $10,000 a year to save, just to save, then I would say that permanent life insurance is probably not going to be the best suit for you. And you would be better off putting your time and energy into figuring out how you can save at least $10,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
If you're someone that can have the means to save at least $10,000 a year and maybe are sitting on a lump sum of money in addition to that, then life insurance could enhance what you're currently doing by not taking away where you're investing, but routing that money into that foundational asset or a portion of that, and then showing you how you can use that asset in addition to invest in real estate, invest in your business and whatnot. I just spoke to a real estate investor today, and we just looked at, should you just use your savings account to put down payments for a house, or should you run it through life insurance? And in the first couple of years, the savings account is more efficient. And at about year 8, and every year after that, the life insurance is more efficient, and thanks to compounding, it gets more and more efficient every year. And so it's not a get rich quick, this is a no-brainer. People have to decide, is that 8-year difference in this scenario, what do I want to do? And so that's
Mm-hmm.
what we help people decide. But if you ask me, what are the downfalls to using life insurance as a savings vehicle? Is number one, you're going to have less money in the first couple of years than what you put in. And for some people, that's a turnoff, and they can't get over that. And that I respect that. And then there is a time where that's not the case. You have more money than what you've put in, and it surpasses a savings account. That's usually year 5 to 7. And then the second thing is, not everyone qualifies because it is life insurance. You need to insure a life. And there's some people in this situation that aren't able to qualify. Now, there's ways around that. You can get creative, but you personally might not be able to qualify for life insurance. And so that definitely can take it's not everyone can do this strategy on their own life.
Are there any regulations that are on the docket or changing or evolving that are making this product or instrument more accessible, more available, more enticing, more intriguing because of legislation that's making it so?
Yeah, that's the great question. I would think the short answer is no.
Okay.
It's kind of one of those asset classes that doesn't have a lot of attention. And one of the reasons why it's such an amazing asset is when structured and utilized properly, after your money goes in, it grows tax-free, can be used tax-free, and gets passed on income tax-free to the next generation. So all of those have been rock solid, and that's why life insurance as a chassis is really, really important. The more advanced answer to your question is yes. There's some legislation that have happened that allows the insurance companies in a low interest rate environment to be a little bit more flexible, but we're getting into the weeds, and that's not, it's more from a product design. There's more flexibility in how we can design it. It doesn't really address the end consumer and how they can have access to this.
You're obviously an entrepreneur and you're building a business. Talk a little bit about how you have built BetterWealth, the organizational design. I can tell that you like talking about the access, the availability in all 50 states. It's a bit of core to your value, and you're 100% remote and all of those things. So maybe talk about org structure.
Yeah. So the one of the things that I'm most proud of is I am the pretty face or non-pretty face, depending on your opinion
Depending on the audience.
on BetterWealth. And I had a mentor of mine early on say, Caleb, if you want to build the business the way that you're saying, because I want to be the one-stop shop for every financial decision. If you really want to do that, you're still meeting with a bunch of people and you love meeting with people, but you're saying one thing and your actions are doing the exact opposite. So 2.5 years ago, I actually stepped down from meeting with people and the day-to-day, and I found the right who's. I'm a big fan of Dan Sullivan, Who Not How. And so asking the question, who, and this is very much Jim Collins-esque as well, who needs to be on the bus, who needs to be on the team to be able to make sure that our company and the bus is not just going, to where we think it can go, but can go in directions that we don't even know is possible. And so what I'm most proud of is every single business that is under BetterWealth. So you've like BetterWealth is at its simplest is a brand and an education company that brings in entrepreneurs, and then our goal is to help them be more efficient with their resources. And so each brand and company has a who that is responsible for the ins and outs of the revenue and making sure that the operations is designed. And I am overseeing that, but I got really clear that the 3 things that I need to be doing that is life-giving is I love creating and vision. I love creating content and believe that's one of the greatest value leverage things that I can do. And relationships and creating deals. Like that's one thing that I love to do. I'm uniquely gifted at it. And so I want to do more of that. If there's something that falls outside of those 3 things, the company gets hurt if I insert myself in there. And one of the biggest things that I had to realize is I'm not a very good manager. I'm not very good at leading meetings. And I had to really put my ego at the altar and say, okay, I'm not good at this. And so is the company going to suffer because I need to be in charge of certain things or, manage people? And the moment I got out of the way in some of those areas, we took off because we have amazing people that were handcuffed due to my lack of leadership.
It sounds very logical when you lay it out. And if there's nothing more that people gain from listening to this podcast, other than learning more about life insurance, learning more about acknowledging where your genius zone is, where it isn't, and taking the actions to spend more time in it. And again, in hindsight, oh my gosh, Caleb, yes, that makes a lot of sense. But oftentimes when you're in the milieu of it, it's hard to see it yourself. I'm wondering, did anybody hold up the mirror to you to help you catalyze toward that acknowledgement and ultimate shift around where you are best contributing?
Twofold. So the team, again, if you ask me what I'm most proud of, it's the people that I do business with day in and day out. And there are people on our leadership team that will say things to me that you'd be like, oh boy. And it's not just, I don't just lean into it. I thank them because it takes a ton of courage to share, especially things that I can improve. And anyone, it's hard across the board, especially if you're talking to someone that might be a leader in the organization in that way. And so we have an atmosphere where we encourage that. And then also really embodying the concept of extreme ownership makes you a way happier person. And so extreme ownership is essentially saying any problem that I face in my life is my fault. And I am not going to point fingers at anybody in the organization other than me. It's not my wife's fault. It's not our leadership team's fault. It's my fault because I'm the leader of this team. And so as a result, what would a great leader do in this case? It doesn't mean there's no accountability. There's tons of accountability, but because everything's my fault, it creates like when we have a problem, my default is, okay, obviously it starts with me. And as a result, I need to communicate in humility to say, okay, it starts with me, but what do we need to do to solve this? Because I don't want to have any ego. And so I think as a leader, if you're like, people aren't being honest with me and all this stuff, it a lot of times is your fault because you're not creating an atmosphere where that can happen. I would say I create an atmosphere where people feel very comfortable calling me out. And then I truly want to be the best I can. And so I really try to create action behind it and make sure that there's not hypocrisy to say you're saying one thing and you're not changing at all. And so I don't know if any of that resonated, but those are some of the things that we actively are working on, and we try to make sure that our company culture embodies that.
Mm-hmm. And so because of that, it created the space for you to be more self-reflective around the impact that you could make and where you needed to spend time or wanted to spend time in order to do that.
Right. And
Awesome.
majority of people in our space can't get out of their own way. And when I realized that I was actually getting in the way of helping more people, that was the epiphany for me. And we've had rocky, but at the end of the day, I'm look back and I'm so grateful for that mind expansion, because I got it at 23. And a lot of people are 45, 55, and just realizing like, oh, I got to get out of the business.
Couldn't agree with you more. You mentioned creation of content being an area of genius for you. And I don't want to move too far askew from BetterWealth, but I think it's a really interesting and important observation in your role as a leader, that being a producer, a creator of content is a vehicle to awareness, education, and ultimately customer acquisition. Could you talk a little bit about your strategy, your content strategies, and what's been effective for you?
Yeah, if you're okay, I'm going to take a step back, and it's based on a framework of value and leverage.
Okay.
I believe the 1-2 punch to any business is you have to create value through a service or product. And a lot of times, not all service and products are created equal. And so as a owner, as a leader, we need to be obsessive about the actual product or service that we produce to the marketplace. And then let's assume that you've done all the work that you need and your product and service is lights out. Then the next part is, what are the levers that can amplify our ability to serve more people through our product or service? And the levers could be capital, it could be relationships, it could be the ability to create content, it could be the ability to publish that content, it could be the ability to create code and all that. And so that's just kind of how I think. You provide value, and then you amplify that value. And in the world, it's no longer is it just money. If you look at 100, 200 years ago, the wealthiest people were the ones that leveraged capital and people, and those are the people that made the wealth. And now, if you take a step back, that those money and people are part of the equation, but there are other levers that could be available that can help you take your service or product to the next level. Content for me is, if I think back on like me dying and the things that would be the most meaningful, the thought of being able to create a video that ultimately can live on past me, and that more than one eyeballs can watch and hopefully get impacted by, but it only costs me one input, makes me obsessive, and realizes if I have a message that needs to be shared, it's one of the most valuable, important things that I can do is create, hopefully, content that's valuable with the ultimate leverage effect if it's put on certain platforms and it's valuable enough. So content is not just used in our business strategy as a lever, but content itself very much aligns with one of the most important things that I can be doing. And the thought of, again, going back and creating pieces of content that can live on there's not a lot of things like that. And so with that, I've become pretty obsessed with trying to figure it out. With all that said, I'm still working. I'm a fraction of where we need to be, but it's something that I'm committed to in the future.
I think about it the same way. And one input to an evergreen journey, it just makes so much sense if you feel like you have a message that can support, like you said, a lights out value. Curious, what social media platform have you found to be most effective for BetterWealth's message?
YouTube by a long shot.
Really?
Is the platform that we have made the most money on, because again, people will search and they'll watch videos and they'll reach out to us. And so YouTube is by far the platform that has been the most beneficial for us. My money's on Google. And so I would encourage anyone, if you're doing content, to figure that out. And then I've had a podcast for over 5 years. And so the second part to that question is we get 300 to 500 downloads a day on our podcast. And so
Wow.
that also translates into great activity and compounds when you think about that on a daily basis, and some of the people that reach out through that. So it'd be podcast and YouTube would be the most beneficial financially. And then we get views on other platforms that might look more impressive, but they just don't translate as much into value and to revenue, I would say, at this point. And so I don't know how to best answer that, but if I had to stay on one platform, it would be YouTube.
I think people are sometimes surprised to hear that YouTube is the second most popular search engine.
Yeah.
Behind
and
Google.
The first one's Google. and Google owns YouTube. So
exactly. It's pretty astounding. Let me ask a couple of closing questions here. And Caleb, it's been great having you on. And what I love about this podcast is we may come in with a particular set of questions or content around the what you do. I really love getting to the why you do it and also the architecting of the business that you're trying to build. So it's kind of this great symbiotic set of questions and corresponding content, which I appreciate. If I'm listening to this episode and there's some action that I could take getting off of this call today, what are some actions or recommendations you might put forth to a listener?
The best thing that we can do for your audience is do a BetterWealth X-ray. And a BetterWealth X-ray is very much like the word X-ray. It's highlighting where you're currently at, and it's showing you exactly the inefficiencies that we're highlighting, and some of the inefficiencies that might be highlighted, you can choose to address them or not. But the BetterWealth X-ray is the best way for us to take someone who's like, hey, I'm interested in learning more, and instead of looking at a strategy, which I'm really anti, it's like, let's look at where you're at, let's highlight inefficiencies, and from there we'll have a better understanding of what we should address and what to pursue next. So that would be one.
Okay.
If someone's just interested in life insurance and they're like, hey, what you said sounds really interesting, we have a resource that's free that gives you all the kind of content that you need to know to learn more about that. And for both the X-ray and the Vault, I can either share where to go, or we can have links down below. And for your audience, I want to figure out a way to get them a great access to the X-ray if that's what they want to do. And so we'll figure out either a coupon code or a special link that they can go to do that.
Perfect. We'll definitely put that in the show notes. But if somebody wanted to just hop on right now and learn more, would they just go to betterwealth.com?
Yeah, just go to betterwealth.com and you can learn more about the AND asset and the X-ray from there. And just don't buy the X-ray until you check out we'll have some type of coupon or link for you.
Terrific. Is there anything that people don't typically ask you on these types of shows, episodes, that you wish they did, that you'd like to share?
What you asked is one of my favorite questions. The question I would ask people, and this is what I would say, is if you were on your deathbed and you were looking back on your life, what would be the most sacred things, and what would you say to the people that you love the most? I would encourage you to do two things. Number one, I would encourage you to write that down and do a video on it, because I think that just having a video in itself will change you the moment you make it. And then hopefully, if it's preserved well, will just be some of the most meaningful digital asset of your entire life. But it will also help clarify why you do what you do. And what you might find, because what I find this all the time, is that I'm focused on things that don't matter. And it would be a shame to live our entire life chasing things that really don't matter. And usually when we think about the end of our life, there's a beautiful clarification that really highlights what's really, really important and all the vanity metrics that are not important.
Holding that pause there for a minute. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I want to go make that video. Thank you. Caleb, thank you so much for spending time with us today. You have these wonderful pearls, uh, many that I wrote down that I will be highlighting. I'm sure you know that you have some takeaways that people can internalize and act on. And the way that I receive you is that it is what makes you particularly magnetic and effective in sending a message that you believe is important and that people take action on and realize the benefits themselves. So thank you for giving me and the Stride to Freedom podcast the opportunity to share your story.
It's a true honor, and I'm just so grateful for your ability to listen and have a conversation. You're gifted, and I'm just grateful that you're in my life, and I look forward to seeing what the future holds.
Caleb, thank you again. And thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Stride to Freedom podcast. Have a great day. We will see you on a future show. Thanks again, Caleb.
Thank you.